And we are live. So, welcome to our continued coverage of the quality Showtime horror series, Penny Dreadful. I think that this is just one of the best horror series out there. You occasionally run into somebody on social media that's talking about it, but I don't know of anybody who's covering it, and I think it's worthy of discussion. It's not the type of series where you could just cram a whole season into, one stream. You wouldn't be able to nearly give it the justice that it deserves. And so I thought, hey, let's bring back some of these series. Let's go at them one episode at a time and hash them out. You know, the episodes, the streams run about 45, 50 minutes per, but there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Joining me tonight, once again, I've got the Goraphobe, fresh off of viewing the newest or this episode here, season 1, episode 2, called Seance. There's definitely a seance going on in this one. And they're not pulling any punches about it. Thank you again for joining me. I do appreciate it.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Always, bro. So let's hear your initial thoughts, just your general thoughts, because you are watching this for the first time. And part of the allure, I think, of doing something like this is that, I own them,
right.
And I have, Paramount Plus, so, I can pull it up anytime. But you, my co-host here, you are seeing it for the first time. So, I'm sort of living vicariously. We were talking a little bit about the ending of the episode before we went on. Vicarious experience, seeing it through your eyes. What did you think of this second episode?
Oh, I thought the second episode was even better than the first one. Of course, we left off the last one. We found out that was definitely Victor Frankenstein, and we got to look at his monster, which wasn't the monster I expected. I expected, the classic, the Hammer monster or the Universal monster. And this guy seems to be, he had a sensitivity to him. He's even a little curious, feeling the tear coming from Victor Frankenstein's eye. And he just actually seemed to be serene and kind of sweet, actually.
He's very childlike. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But then, we start into this one, and the initial feeling I got from this one is this one might be a Jack the Ripper episode. Which was my first idea about this one, because we go directly into some Jack the Ripper stuff.
So the episode kicks off with a really horrible scene here. You've got a prostitute sitting on a park bench. I assume she's a prostitute. I think that's an accurate summary. And it's a foggy night in London, and she's cold, but she's a prostitute, so I guess she has to show a little bit. So she can't cover up. She doesn't have a coat. She's freezing. Here's the shot here. She's just kind of rubbing her hands together, doing this kind of thing, trying to stay warm.
Sure.
She's scared because she's on the streets by herself. And we remember from last week's episodes with those murders that people believe that Jack the Ripper is back. And, whoa, what happened there with you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know what's going on. I think I got to adjust something. But for some reason, every once in a while, it'll get real bright. So just
and there it goes again. All right. So
hold on a second. Am I pixeling if I do that?
That's fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hopefully that takes care of
Yeah.
it.
So she's scared and she's cold, and there's this terrible scene where all she's got on her is this. She's got some food, and it's an apple. And it's just this one little sad apple wrapped inside a piece of newspaper. And it's just so awful to see because, she's out there alone and there's the apple. And then, the newspaper has got the headline about the murders. So, that's making her even more afraid. And, suddenly someone starts to come along and you can see, she's, terrified. And it's the man, I guess, who lights the gas lights. And in a true just dickhead move, I don't know if you noticed this, he absolutely refuses to light hers.
Yes.
He just walks right past her.
Right.
He lights the one before her. You see him coming towards you there. And then he just kind of stares at her and just, like she's kind of like she's a thing. Right. And then he just walks right past her lamp, because she's sitting under a bench. So there should be a lamp there so she can have some light. Right. And he just walks right past it and lights the next one. And you're just like, wow, you are
which leaves her right in
real piece of shit. Huh?
Which leaves her right in a definite blind dark spot.
Yeah, and she's just terrified of being in the dark with a murderer, and she's by herself. And it was like something from that movie From Hell. Do you remember From Hell, the Hughes brothers, the Jack the Ripper movie with Johnny Depp? I like that movie. It wasn't a huge blockbuster based on the Alan Moore novel, but I like it. But it's just brutal in its depiction of what life was like for poor women in the latter end of the 19th century in London. And this sort of picks up on that same vibe. I saw something that that said this occurs, all of this basically takes place in 1891.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe a couple of years after the Ripper murders, so on and so forth. Give me your thoughts. I mean, where were you with this?
Yeah, I noticed that the more she was terrified from the beginning. It seemed like she was just waiting for a John, as they did. They just kind of advertised. It was as sexy as they could, and they advertised. And like you said, the guy's coming along. He's lighting them. He skips hers because obviously he feels she's not good enough for enough light, which leaves her in what you'd call a blind spot, and even darkened spot, which makes her even more terrified. And now she's basically to the point of just shivering like a dog shitting razor blade.
Yeah, that's basically one way to put it. And then all of a sudden we see the man with the light just get he just disappears. Mm-hmm. And something just fucking grabs him, and you're like, oh shit, it's fucking on. Yep. And then, all of a sudden, something's sort of approaching, and, she's really fucking scared, and her goose is fucking cooked.
Scream, and then you get the same apple with blood splattered on it.
Her arm from the middle of her forearm down just hits the fucking ground, and then all of a sudden it's just on. Again, another episode where within the first couple of minutes it's setting the tone for gore and for horror. It's reminding you that you're in London. This is a place where people aren't really good to women. Women definitely are lower on the totem pole. And people are just getting fucking ripped up. There's no other way around it. It's just it's rough and fucking tumble shit. So we go on from there, and we start off with Josh Hartnett. He's back, and I guess, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious that what got that woman was Josh Hartnett.
Right.
Was that your interpretation?
Well, yeah, and I noticed that he wakes up with nails embedded into his hand. Like he's having some really bad nightmares or something's going on there because he's not sleeping well and he's sleeping right there outside. So he's
Yeah,
clenching his fist really hard.
yeah. So something's going on with him.
Yeah.
Um, he's just, he wakes up outside this like bar, this low rent bar hotel on like a shitty part of London. And, the next thing you know, he's inside the bar, just, fucking hanging out. And that's where we meet, who I think is one of the coolest characters. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Brona Croft, and I was going to say once again they even topped last week's episode as far as set design goes. So I felt like I was in one of those low grade pubs. I mean, you just look all around and you don't see one flaw, man. It looked really good.
Yeah. Well, let's not get too much to Brona Croft just yet. But yeah, I mean, you look at that design. Who knows? Maybe that is like a real old bar. I mean, but you can tell that these people give a shit. Yeah, and this must have been expensive to make. Those sorts of sets aren't cheap, and we've been in 2 episodes now with a varied number of sets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like let's say Star Trek. Picard season 3, which is excellent, by the way, if you're not watching it so far. But most of those things take place on the ship. Here, everything is taking place in completely different places.
Yes.
So it must be really fucking expensive. But I mean, it just shows you that they give a shit, or at least you were there in a time when Hollywood had more money. I don't think there's that much money going on right now.
Right.
In Hollywood.
Willing to put that much money toward things. I think they've gotten a little afraid to put that much money toward this type of thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think basically the money's fucking drying up in there, but fortunately, in 2014, that really wasn't much of a problem. So we come back and hey, guess what? Here's our buddy, Mr. Proteus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he hasn't been named Mr. Proteus yet, but what's happening is that Victor is teaching him life skills,
Mm-hmm.
and so, almost like you would teach a child how to eat. He's coming along very quickly. What did you think of Mr. Proteus? Did you like his character?
Oh, definitely. And I thought it was a really sweet relationship too, because I mean, you can tell Victor really cares about him, and you can tell that this is his prize work. This is what he's been shooting toward creating and what he's wanted to create the whole time. I mean, who knows how long he's been doing it, but you can tell this is what this is his prize work, and he really started to really care about him, and they have a good friend or brother relationship developing here. And you're right. You're right. He's teaching him like you would a child, and he's coming along very quickly.
Yeah, it comes along very quickly. He has a memory for things. He sings. He can automatically. He can remember songs. He can. He has great hand-eye coordination. He's very childlike. He's very kind. It's really a point of pride. That you can see the pride that Victor has in him. It almost kind of makes you forget that where he actually comes from.
Right.
It's really successful in its suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
That you forget that this is an artificial person, who's been sewed together from different body parts. You only see him as Mr. Proteus. And I think that's really dependent on, and I don't know the actor's name who plays Proteus. He makes you forget. He makes you forget. He does a really fucking great job.
Proteus is Rory Kinnear.
Rory Kinnear. Okay. Well, Rory Kinnear does a fucking great job.
He's healed. And you notice that he's healed. His eyes aren't bloodshot like they were. You could tell that the incisions and everything. He's actually starting to look like like normal. Like when you first seen him, you could tell he was still kind of, his eyes look kind of weird, but now he's starting to look like a man.
Yeah, he's settling in. He's settling into, you know, his body, so to speak. But that does bring us to back to your set design that you were talking about, and we get to meet the character Brona Croft. And without giving too much away, Brona Croft is going to be a major player
Okay.
in this series and throughout this series. And she is a Irish prostitute, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And I love how just very quickly it goes into the story of how she sort of became this way.
Right.
You know, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to?
Well, go ahead and go with that, and I'll go into a little bit of her and Ethan if you want.
Yeah, well, she goes into you know, this story about how she's come over from Ireland, you know, looking for opportunity, you know, looking for, you know, a chance to make it in the city, you know, a better life. She starts doing factory work. But guess what? It's 1891, and you're in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. So
Right.
all of the jobs that poor people were once doing have now been taken over by machines. And so, you know, there are no real options for her. You know, I guess going back to Ireland is worse. So she ekes out a living selling herself.
The only
You
way
know,
that a woman in that position can at that time, really.
yeah, yeah. And what did you what did you think of her character or her personality? Because I love how they just gave you that quick, like 90-second explanation, and then you don't need to really know anymore.
Right.
But what did you think of her as a character, of her personality, and then talk a little bit about what happens between her and Ethan?
Well, I liked her character right away. It's I didn't know much about. She's played by an actress named Billie Piper,
I love
and
Billie Piper.
I didn't know much about her. I haven't seen her much. I mean, she looked kind of familiar, but I hadn't really seen her much. And I love the instant rapport and instant kind of, not sexual, but a friendship that her and Ethan start to build together. It's like, even though she's a prostitute, you know, and he's kind of like a phony actor, they kind of find that common ground between the two of each other, and they kind of have this common respect as friends. You know, I thought that was kind of cool how that came together, because she
Well,
figured him out right away, and he figured her out right away.
yeah, and they just kind of accept each other at face value.
Right.
Um, Billie Piper was on another Showtime series, and I think it's called The Secret Diary of a Call Girl. And it was based on a true story of a college student who decided to supplement her income by becoming an escort.
All right.
And she ended up writing a best-selling book about it, which turned into a Showtime series. And the lead role of the escort was played by Billie Piper. So years later, when I saw her in Penny Dreadful, I'm like, holy shit, because she was great in that. Okay. And then, you know, years later, I see her in this, and I'm like, wow. And she's a tour de force, man. She's just a force of nature. Cool. Billie Piper is. Fantastic work. And she also has, and this is another product of the time, and it's brought up, but then it presents itself much more severely later on. She has consumption.
Yes, consumption disease. What exactly is
that? I'm not exactly sure. It's some sort of respiratory infection. It was a death sentence. It was like it's like tuberculosis.
Okay.
It's some sort of respiratory infection that just does not go away. I mean, now I think they could just cure it with antibiotics, but they didn't have antibiotics back then. So, I mean, it just wiped out tons of people. It's what ended up killing Doc Holliday.
So is it contagious? Oh, so that's what that disease is. Okay.
I believe so. Hold on a second. Maybe I can Google it up real quick.
Because I instantly asked my fiance and my son, what exactly is consumption disease? And they weren't really sure either. But I've seen it on a lot of films, and I have heard about
Consumption is the act of, no, hold on. Consumption disease definition. Hold on. Yeah, tuberculosis, also known as consumption, is a disease caused by bacteria that usually attacks the lungs. There's the bacteria. It's a bacterial infection.
Okay.
The bacteria that causes TB are spread when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Most people infected with the bacteria that cause tuberculosis don't have symptoms. When symptoms do occur, they usually include cough, sometimes blood-tinged, weight loss, night sweats, and fever. Treatment isn't always required for those without symptoms. Patients with active symptoms will require a long course of treatment involving multiple antibiotics.
Which wasn't available then, I think.
Yeah, but antibiotics didn't exist back then. So I'm seeing somewhere else it's saying an old and once common term for wasting away of the body.
Damn.
So yeah, it's pretty awful. But back then, it was probably fairly common. And just, I see people all the time and they talk about, maybe we've had this discussion about, what time, or period would you rather have lived in? And I'm like, I'm okay right now. Antibiotics, air conditioning, 5G, central heating. I'm good. I got a car, it's okay.
Air conditioning's enough to say the air conditioning's enough to sell me.
Yeah. So we come back to the story, and yeah, you're right. They're forming some sort of relationship.
Yes.
We get into the autopsy by Dr. Frankenstein, where he's talking about, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, basically having to do with eternal life, these sorts of things. But then they come back to Brona Croft, who has an appointment. Hold on a second. We got a comment here. I think it's your fiance. It's Gretchen Doran. She says, hi, guys. Hey, Gretchen. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for stopping in.
Thumbs up.
Gretchen, I hope you're enjoying the show, that I've got him, working on here. I'm sorry that, if you guys are watching it one episode a week, I apologize about that, but it helps for the boundaries in the episodes. Like you were saying last week, if we start watching them all, then, the conversation goes all over the place and you're kind of jumping from here to there. So, I do hope you're enjoying the show. I wouldn't want to take anybody's time up with something awful, unless it was a short amount of time and then just to laugh at it. So, we get to meet another character, Dorian Gray.
Oh yeah.
Now he was another one. When I first saw this, I was like, wow, because hey, we talk a lot about your famous Gothic horror characters, your Draculas, your Frankensteins. You got some werewolves thrown in here, there. You got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, these sorts of things. But one of the characters that rarely gets discussed is Oscar Wilde's The Portrait of Dorian Gray. Do you know much about Dorian Gray?
Not much, no. I mean, I know of him, but I don't know much about him. Like I've learned more about him in the show so far than I really know about him. I hate to admit. Okay,
so do you understand? I mean, the premise of the story about Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is a man who is rich. And if I'm not mistaken, I haven't read it in a long time. He's, very attractive, this libertine kind of guy.
Seductive.
Yeah, he's, just, fun-loving, freewheeling, kind of person, very affluent. But he's actually ancient.
Right.
And he has a portrait that is hidden away in another part of his house, in a secret part of his house, that actually shows how old and decrepit he is.
Right. He kind of puts me in mind of a non-vampiric vampire Lestat.
That's probably accurate. Very, very much about aesthetics and things that are beautiful, things that are odd, those are the sorts of things that attract him. And so we get to meet Dorian Gray, and he is bringing Brona Croft on board for a day's worth of work to photograph her.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat risque. She's got like a corset on, and but it's not anything NC-17 or it's nothing on like Pornhub or something like that. But all of a sudden she coughs, and some of that blood starts to come up out of the respiratory issues. And do you want to take it from there?
Well, yeah, she warns him that hey, I have a disease, it's consumption. And I wondered immediately why he wasn't worried about that. He immediately starts licking the lips. He starts making out with her. Next thing you know, they're boning. And and I wondered throughout that time there why he wasn't worried about that. Like there must be some serious explanation, because I get the idea that consumption is contagious, and that's why she was warning.
It's very contagious. It's also not something that's going to affect him. He is another character that will make it through. You're going to be seeing a lot of Dorian Gray.
Okay.
He's a regular on this show. So, I mean, I just think it's great. You've got Dr. Frankenstein. You've got, Frankenstein's monster. You've got, Mina Murray, who's turned into a vampire. All these, sorts of characters going on here. With Dorian Gray, I think what actually attracts him to Brona is that she's dying, and he tells her, "I've never fucked a dying thing before." So, like, he's so starved, because I mean, think about it. If you really were like immortal, just how boring everything would become over time. So, like, anything that's odd or anything that's different is something that attracts him. And he says it several different ways. Like, I never say no to anything.
Right. Or anything risky would hurt. Anything really risky, or even the chance. Oh, you're dying. Well, cool. Let's check this out. See what's happening.
Yeah, that's different. I haven't done that yet. I've been alive for 2 billion years. Hey, let's try this. It's only going to last for 15 minutes, but what the hell? Let's give it a shot. So, an interesting character. We also come back to then Sir Malcolm, and I'm still, kind of fanboying for Timothy Dalton here.
Yeah.
And he goes to visit the police to check into these murders that we saw in the beginning of the first episode. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't remember exactly what they discussed in there. I just watched it, but it's the only time that I've seen it, so I wouldn't be able to tell too much about it. You'd probably be able to do better on that.
Well, what did you see?
Well, I see him go in and talk to that inspector, and they discuss the murders.
They discuss the murders. Basically, he wants to see if this is. I mean, I think you can intuit that he wants to see if this is connected to what's happening with his daughter, his missing daughter.
Okay. Yeah.
These sorts of murders, that sort of thing. You see some really graphic pictures of the little kid who got chewed up, and we find out there's they've been eating the
I'm not so sure that it is Jack the Ripper, because I mean, if I remember the Jack the Ripper story correctly, didn't he disemboweled and stuff? This guy is actually chopping limbs off. He's actually tearing them to pieces. And
he's chopping limbs off. He's tearing them to pieces. He's eating, or pieces are missing. These sorts of.
You're not looking for a man. You're not looking for a man. Stop looking for a man. You're never going to find him. You're not looking for a man. You're looking for a beast.
Yeah, that's what he tells him. You're looking for a beast. You're hunting him the wrong way.
Right. You're never going to get it.
But basically, he's there to pump the police for information. And it occurs to me, I guess, in that time, it's not quite what it is. Well, it's not nearly what it once was. I guess if you were knighted and a sir, you were kind of an extension of the monarchy.
Right.
So that comes with a lot of clout.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if Sir Malcolm Murray walks into the place, he's kind of representing, the monarchy. So it's not someone that's easy to say no to.
Right. He garners a lot of respect. Everywhere he goes, yeah, I've noticed that everywhere he goes, it's like, wow, he's here, bring him right in,
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy just stands right up. Oh, all right. Yeah. All right. Let's get to it. So, I mean, we talk a little bit about, we come back to Proteus and, Frankenstein, and we can see that, Proteus, really easily makes connections. He's sort of connected to he's remembering things from his past life. He recognizes what a boat is, whaling and, these sorts of things. So it gives you maybe a little insight into his background. Hold on a second. Gretchen says, love Timothy in anything. Yeah. One of my favorite Bonds. Fantastic James Bond. It's a shame he only did 2 movies. Really, really good. So, they spend a little bit of time together, but then, we come back basically to maybe the highlight of the episode, which is basically Mr. Lyle's party. Mr. Lyle, who we met in the first episode, who's helping them translate a lot of the hieroglyphics that were on the skin of that vampire that they killed, is throwing this huge party. And again, you can just see, another huge lavish set.
Yeah, very flamboyant.
Yeah.
Very flamboyant, very nice. I mean, I love how it makes you feel like you're there. Everything about it. It makes even the people which sometimes, like for instance, I don't mean to hold it up, but sometimes, for instance, when you look at an old book, how the people look different than people look now, even in the face. You know what I mean? Like their faces are shaped different than our faces are shaped now. Yeah. And I think that's only because of the setting and what they wore. And that's kind of what I started to realize by watching this, going, this set and these clothes make the people look like the people looked then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've all got those smallish kind of features.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah.
That one girl that was at the seance table that's doing all the screaming, she looks like, I mean, they really did a pretty thorough job, a successful job with the casting. Of even the smaller characters.
Of how clothes can transform you. How clothes in your setting can literally transform what you look like.
Yeah. Hold on a second. We've got Eric. What's up, man? He's saying good evening. What's happening, bro? Thanks for stopping in. I mean, we've got, Mr. Lyle's party. Now, I think Mr. Lyle is kind of a comic character because he is just so fucking flamboyant, and he's like flamboyant on purpose, and like he enjoys, just being, fucking, Mr. Flamboyance himself.
He's a happy gentleman.
Yes, he is. He is indeed a happy gentleman. So, I mean, we also get an introduction or a little meetup between Dorian Gray and Vanessa. And so we can see that maybe that's going to go somewhere.
He's already seducing her from meeting one. He just says just the right thing. He knows how to say it, when to say it.
That's right. Something she said. She says something about no, and he's like, I never say no to anything.
Right.
He's a very smooth talker. A very polished act. Very good at reading people, because you've seen so far that Vanessa's Eva Green, and Eva Green is just great in this. And this for me is her best role. You can see that she's very good at keeping people at a distance.
Yeah,
she did it with Ethan, even with Malcolm. There's a distance between them, but he just moves right in. Just
30 seconds, and she's swept up right off her feet. You can see it on her face. She was seduced already. This motherfucker's got it.
Yep, he's got her hand, and he's running his fingers up her arm, and it's been like 3 minutes, and he's already going in for the kill. But that gets postponed because Mr. Lyle wants to start to hold a seance.
Oh yeah.
Brought on by none other than Madame Kali. Now, there's no way you can know this, but this is another character who is going to be a recurring character later in the show.
Played by Helen McCrory.
From Peaky Blinders. She's Aunt Polly in Peaky Blinders. And recently, I think within the past year or so, she just passed away of cancer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very sad. She was great in this. She was fantastic in Peaky Blinders. She's kind of the matriarch of that, that criminal family. And unfortunately, she just, it happens. People get sick and, it's just their time. But she's really, really great in this. What did you think of the seance?
Well, she comes out, you know what I mean? And the first thing that I'm thinking is this is bullshit. She's going to be full of shit. But quickly it gets completely out of control. And she loses complete control of her entire seance. Like she's even going, what the fuck, after a minute.
Yeah, it starts where, she starts channeling things.
Right.
And then, you can't really tell if it's, smoke and mirrors, if she's just blowing smoke up people's butts.
Maybe that was her initial idea, but then it gets taken right the fuck away from her immediately. I think that's why she looked like that.
Yeah, the whole thing just sort of spins out of control. And if she is channeling somebody, and I won't give away any spoilers because she is going to be a recurring character.
And I don't know either. So
right. So I don't want to say. But the whole thing ends up channeling into Eva Green.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think of Eva's performance? I mean,
fantastic, man. It's like she did like it felt like she did like 3 different characters there, like back to back to back to back. And it come to find out that it was Mina, right?
The first one is, and it's interesting because the way that they do it in the seance tells you not about Eva Green. It doesn't tell you anything about Eva Green. It tells you about Sir Malcolm.
Right. It fucks him up, yeah.
Yeah, and you find out, he's really not kind of a stand-up guy.
He's not very savory, no. And I thought he was much more savory stand-up than what she is giving away about him.
Yeah, she's giving away like all of his, kind of, awful shit that he's done. That he, kind of left, because he's an explorer, these British explorers, they're going all over the place. And he kind of left his son to die.
Yeah.
He left his son to die so he could go explore. I guess his son caught dysentery. Again, another disease that just isn't part of our vocabulary anymore. But back then, if you caught dysentery, you were probably going to die. You just shit yourself to death.
Yeah.
These awful, awful bacterial diseases that people caught back then. And, she really just starts letting all the dirty laundry out about Malcolm to his face in front of all of society.
Everybody.
Huge party.
He portrays himself to be this caring, great dad that's just trying to find his daughter and was just trying to save her. And it turns out there's a lot more to him than that, which I love that.
Yeah, I just, like you said, I love that, and I love the way that they did it. I love the way that they did it by just saying, we're going to let this woman for 5 minutes give you all of this information about another character, that just kind of throws some real shade at him. Hey, this guy left his son to die, took him on some trip and left him to go shit himself to death while he went off to get some sort of mountain, or climb some sort of mountain. He was banging some other woman, probably in less than savory conditions. We'll get into that a little bit more. So, Eva Green transfers from the son then to somebody else that we're not sure when she's talking about him fucking that woman that
Yes.
we haven't been introduced to. And then you're right, it channels into Mina.
Yeah. And they're all really hatred and they got a lot of hatred for him. They got a lot of hatred and disdain for him, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking awful to behold. It ends up throwing the whole thing into disarray. It just turns the whole party into a fucking free-for-all. And, everybody's screaming and, screaming their heads off. And, it just freaks everybody out. Because what originally was probably going to start out as a prank, it's just for fun. Hey, we're going to have a seance. Sure, we're going to have a seance. Actually turns into a fucking horror show.
Yeah, it's scaring everybody half to death because they were expecting just to have fun and enjoy the party. It turned out to be the real fucking thing, and it freaked everybody out, including the Madonna.
Yeah, and including Eva Green, including Sir Malcolm, Madame Kali, everybody, Mr. Lyle, Dorian Gray, he was fucking freaked out. Yeah, he's like, what the hell is going on here? So, what was probably aimed at being some sort of parlor trick, ends up channeling, some real, ugly shit. Which she immediately leaves the party and just randomly grabs some guy off the street.
Yeah.
And then ends up hooking up with him. We come back to
yeah.
Yeah. We've got the session with the next day. And like Sir Malcolm really isn't recovered. But we get Mr. Lyle and Sir Malcolm. What did you get out of that? We're coming towards the end of the episode. There's not too much more.
Right. He's he's still screwed up out of the next day, and I don't think Lyle really knew what to think about it either. You know what I mean? He was hired to do these readings, which that's something that we didn't touch upon. Was I found out that these beetles had ate all the skin off of that so that you could read all that shit on there, which was really, really cool.
There's just so much casual, gruesome shit going on in here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just this one small detail, Yeah,
I was wondering how they get all that skin off, and they immediately answer it by these beetles that ate all it all clean.
Yeah,
which takes you back to the Egyptian shit, like the Mummy.
Yeah,
Where the Mummy come in and ate all the body, like the old one with like Brendan Fraser. The original Mummy. Beetles would just come in and just eat all that shit.
Yeah, well, the Beatles came on and ate the people.
Yes.
We should
back to that.
We should get a. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, but some else that a callback to the old the original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff when let's see, when Proteus looks up and he's reaching up and that light's coming down. Reminded me of the Boris Karloff Frankenstein when he's just standing there and he's going, "Why, God, why?" You know what I mean? It took me back to that. I don't know if it was meant to, but it did.
It probably wasn't a coincidence, and I'm sure that these showrunners and probably given the nod, the homage to the to the original.
Did that make you think of that?
Not until you brought it up, but now that you did, again, it's something I've seen this series several times, and that didn't occur to me until you just brought it up this time. So I mean, like the way you summarized it last week when you talked about how Sir Malcolm was forming a team.
Yeah.
Like you're absolutely right, and in a way, I kind of knew that, but like to have expressed it in that way. Like that that hadn't occurred to me. I'm like, yeah, he's forming a fucking team. That's what he's doing. He's getting Ethan. He's got Vanessa. He wants Dr. Frankenstein. He's got Sim Benny, his African man. And Sim Benny's just a great fucking character. You're really going to get to like him later on because they give him a lot to do.
I'm just so big on the Universal and the Hammer monster flicks that instantly when he did that, I was like, Boris Karloff, 1931 Frankenstein.
Maybe
Instantly, that's the first thing I thought.
Maybe one of these days we can get into those. I've got these legacy collections, and I know you've got a vast,
tons, man.
a vast
I got
collection.
models and everything. I've got level 3 models I put together and everything.
I've got.
I check this out real quick.
Okay.
This is what I just got from NECA.
Oh, nice.
I also got the Mummy, Frankenstein, the Wolfman.
Oh, you got the Wolfman. The Wolfman is my favorite, and the Creature. The Wolfman and the Creature.
Yeah, but look at that. As soon as they come out, they will be mine.
Sweet.
I absolutely adore them. I grew up on them. My oldest brother brought me up on them, and I've loved order ever since.
I've got I grew up with them with my parents, watching those old Universals. I've got these legacies for Dracula,
Yes.
and so that comes up with Dracula's Daughter, Son of Dracula, House of Dracula, like the Spanish versions.
Oh yeah.
You get that for the Mummy. All the legacies.
Oh yeah. You got Dracula.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got those. Yeah, same. Got that one. Yeah.
And a bunch of others.
Yeah, I got the Creature. Yeah, we got the same ones. We
I
should.
love that.
We'll have to get around and touch base on those someday.
Cool. All right.
Or we'll pick some random selection other than the main ones, and maybe we could do one of those. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, we'll hook it up.
Daughter's a great one too. Daughter is a great one too.
Yeah, or Son of Dracula with Lon Chaney.
Absolutely. Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Was it last October or October before? Ryan and I went to go see Fathom Events, and for Halloween they had the Invisible Man and the Wolfman on the big screen.
Cool.
And that was a treat to see. It was a double feature. So like there was one, and then there was like a 5-minute pause, and then they went right into the next one. So,
cool.
They were over real quick. It was 2 hours, 40 minutes, something like that. It was over fast. But maybe we'll get to the Wolfman or something like that.
Obviously.
Wolfman.
Cool.
Yeah, the Wolfman's great.
Well,
all right. So we get to the next day, and we start to talk about the secrets of the hieroglyphs, and basically it's marking this Amun-Ra and Amunet, which is, if they come together, it's basically the end of civilization and the coming of the beast. So there's some heavy foreshadowing with that shit. Really, really, and without saying too much, that is going to come up again. And then we get to what basically is the final scene in the show or in the episode. And it's basically Mr. Proteus going out for a walk. Going for his first time for a walk. And I just thought that this was a great scene.
Yes.
Because he's just so fucking expressive.
Yes.
About at first being overwhelmed by everything, and then just enjoying it.
And then it kicks in his memories of wife. His wife's name must have been Doreen, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's just great. He ends up meeting. Yeah, he ends up meeting Ethan and Brona on the street. Through Victor. He's shaking hands. It's a little awkward, but he offers Brona a chestnut. And he's like such a quick learner. You're like, wow, this guy's
into her cleavage. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well,
but he remembers. He remembers what's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not made of wood, man. He's got to eat too for a living. So, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Billie Piper. I think Billie Piper. I mean, she plays a little rough looking here, but I think she's extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can find no fault with that. But I mean, they end up meeting, and then they end up going back home, and then it just it ends on just completely going to shit.
Yeah, they're right there. They're having their great little communication between each other and everything. And he's just like yes, and he's like yes, and then oh man, it broke my heart. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just a fucking all of a sudden, there's just a hand coming out of Mr. Proteus's chest from the back, and then basically he's just split open and he's split in half.
Yeah. And
it's just it's fucking awful to see.
Yeah.
And then you realize, of course, that what you've come to face is the original monster.
Yep, he's the monster. The guy he made there he finally made a man, but we thought that was the monster. Come to find out, there really is a monster, and the monster just killed his man.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could say that Dr. Frankenstein was refining the process.
Yeah.
But this is the original, and the character that we're going to be most familiar with in terms of relating him to the original story.
Yeah.
The vengeful, angry, person who has, suffered greatly at the hands of humanity. And once, we'll get into more.
This is the first time that they've ever touched on this, because what they've always shown before is he's always trying to make a man, but he ends up with a monster. Yeah. And this one, it shows you that there is really a monster, but he did actually make a man. It's the first time it's ever showed that he was able to accomplish both.
What they've done here is they've retconned things. I mean, in Dracula's story, Mina Murray's father plays no part in Stoker's Dracula. He's not a character, and so they've built these stories around organic characters that are in the periphery of the main canons.
Yes.
Dracula comes to England. He kills Lucy, turns her into a vampire. Van Helsing and the crew destroy Lucy, and then he goes after Mina.
Right.
But Mina's family has nothing to do with it.
Right.
So they've built and they've put 007. Guess what? 007 is going to play this dad that you've never seen before, and he's going to be the dad from hell, kind of, sort of. Kind of a son of a bitch. And
they've even layered his character. They made him from a nice, respectable Sir Malcolm into an asshole with a lot of shit to hide, Sir Malcolm.
Yeah, he's kind of a son of a bitch. He's kind of a bastard.
Maybe both. Maybe he is both.
Yeah, he's not what you would call an evil person per se, but he's not just the stoic, stiff British, hero. This kind of thing. There's some shit there, when it comes to Sir Malcolm. So, they get into that. And I think the way that they do it is what's to be commended. It's not excessive. It just gets into it, but it tells you everything that you need to know. You get these quick 3 to 5 minute scenes that tell you everything you need to know. And then the story just continues. And it's just it's fantastic.
And what a hell of a cliffhanger! This cliffhanger is even bigger than last week's. Last week you find out this Victor Frankenstein and there's his monster. You think this week it ends with Victor Frankenstein destroying what you thought was his monster, but was really his man, and now you get to meet his actual monster, which looks like a monster and looks really good too. At first he looked kind of like a vampire. But then you find out that no, he's not. He's actually his first creation is what he's trying to forget about. Or try to forget about it.
Yeah, and that guy is kind of pissed about being abandoned, which is what the canon is. So they've retconned it a little bit, but they're pretty loyal to the source material here in a way that's really fucking great. They're spending money. You've got a great cast. You've got great writing. You've got great performances. Yeah,
They're good at taking
what's
the
not to
canon.
like?
They're good at taking the canon and mixing it, like you said, with the retcon and forming the canon and the retcon together. They're doing a great job so far. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's great shit. Great shit. That's why I picked it, man. I've been wanting for a long time to figure out a way to cover this, and I was like, I can't. Like, I couldn't get on a live stream and talk about season one.
Right.
You know, either I'd be here for hours, or I'd have to skip over so much shit.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, no one would know what I was talking about unless you had watched the series. Right. But this is a much more fun way. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Oh, me too.
All right, plug something.
Oh wow, geez, where do we start? Okay, tomorrow night I continue my my Italian watch along / commentary / discussions with Lucio Fulci, City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell, at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Tuesday I will be joining with Ocean Chicks, Karen from Ocean Chicks Films at 10 p.m. and we'll be doing Richard Donner's The Lost Boys. Okay. Wednesday, I will be with Sean Blu-ray Digital at it's either 8 or 9 o'clock. Him and JT, I think it's JT Horror Discussions. We'll be doing Maniac Cop. Thursday night, I'll be continuing my show with my 16-year-old son. Last week we did Saint Maud. This week at 9 p.m. we're going to be reviewing and discussing The Black Coat's Daughter.
Ah, that's so fucking good.
Yeah, he absolutely adores those shows, and so do I. We love to watch those together, and we decided to get together and review all of them. Hell yeah!
Right here. That is one of the best possession movies out there, and nobody fucking talks about it because it's cold.
Thursday night at 9 o'clock. He and I will be reviewing it and discussing it.
All right, let me see if I can get in there on that. I'm usually in bed by then, but because I wake up most days around 4 a.m. for work. Okay. But yeah, all right. Like today I'm off, and tomorrow I'm off, and I've just got funky days off. But yeah, man, all right, very nice, nice coverage.
In between these 2 days, of course Sunday we'll be doing episode 3, but that Friday and Saturday, hopefully I'll have enough time to work on and finally finish, edit, and get out my episode 5 of Van Horror for All, for Christ's sakes. I'm trying.
Okay. Well, take your time with those things, man. Let them come along when they do.
I've just gotten so busy lately. I'm either doing a lot on my channel or I'm going to other channels, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing. Absolutely. All right, for me, we're here tonight talking about Penny Dreadful. Wednesday, I'll be here on the channel talking about 2004's Ginger Snaps Back, the beginning, which I think is an extraordinarily underrated werewolf film that I would put that up against Dog Soldiers anytime. So we're going to discuss that and get into it. And then on Thursday, I'll be here with Eric discussing episode 3 of Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. And like you, I've got Eric rationed out to 1 episode a week. So, he's really struggling with it. But just enjoying the process.
I need to watch that.
Huh?
I need to watch that show. I haven't seen.
It's so beautiful. It's 7 episodes. That's all it is. It's only 7 episodes. Mm-hmm. Wow. It is serious business. Serious business. So is this. This. I'm thinking, maybe picking up one more series. And finding somebody to connect on that with, because it is a commitment. The length of it is the commitment, but the draw is the content.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you can do it that way. So yeah, but that'll be us Wednesday. Ginger Snaps Back, and then Thursday, Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. Okay, My thanks to the Goraphobe. Once again, as always, man, pleasure to have you on board. I guess we will both see you in the next video. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Take care.
Take it easy.